Welcome to Face to Face. Our guest today is a superwoman of our community, and we are going to talk to her about what has really made her a superwoman. She is today president of India Association of Greater Boston. Before, she was president of New England Marathi Mandal, and she is very active in theater, dance, and a great executive in corporate world as well. She is chief risk officer at the United States' oldest mutual fund company. So we are going to talk to her how she does all these things. Aditi, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much, Upendraji.
And it's a pleasure to talk to you. Finally, we are going to know about you. That's all we want to know.
Okay.
Okay. So you are really the first chief risk officer I'm interviewing in my life.
Okay.
So let's
That's
start.
an honor.
So let's start there. What is a chief risk officer?
A chief risk officer is someone who oversees and manages risk in an organization. That's basically what I do. I'm responsible for identifying, assessing, managing enterprise level risk. If you really boil it down in a nutshell, what my role is to really think about for the organization and to help my team think about what could go wrong. In a given situation, that is the first question we ask. What could go wrong? And if that could go wrong, do we have all the processes, the controls in place to manage, address, transfer that risk if we have to, but really going through that scenario planning and thinking process to think and manage and avoid as much as we possibly can from a risk management is really what we do.
So now the over-optimists like us, like me, for example,
Right.
will say, well, that is a very wrong question to ask you in the beginning, what can go wrong? Why not what can go right?
Because you have to plan for everything, right? So you don't, at the end of the day, when you're embarking on a new venture, a new journey, a new process, a new initiative, whatever it might be, you obviously want it to be successful. So the owner of that initiative, their head is always about, I need to make this successful, what needs to go right. My role in there is to really help them manage and avoid any pitfalls along the way. I recognize, and this is one of the things as a risk manager, you absolutely have to know that nothing is ever foolproof. Right? So you cannot eliminate all risk, but you should still be able to manage as much as you possibly can that the end experience and the goal that you're trying to achieve is achievable because you've thought through all the potential downfalls along the way, the pitfalls along the way, and you've figured out a way to trapeze across that.
Yeah. So now we are turning to the interesting part of our conversation. So as I said,
Risk management's not interesting.
well, that is done. That's okay. For optimists like us, always things will go right.
Okay.
So now, as I said in my introduction, that really you are one of the most visible Indian women in this community here. And we have watched your journey for a long time, and you are seen everywhere, even in theater and dance. And you are also have been quite active with the Women of the Year event and the New England Choice Awards. So what really has made you, how you managed to do all those things? And I remember a few years ago in an interview with us for the Women of the Year, you had mentioned that two things really inspire you the most, two people. One is your mother and one is your husband. So let's first start with your mother, that how you think that how she has shaped and changed your life.
So my mother is a self-made woman. She's a physician, retired now, but she was a physician. And the one thing that sums up my mom is she's extremely determined and she's never, ever tired. I have never heard, my mom is 72 years old now. I've never heard her say, I'm tired.
So how it was growing up, how did she raise you?
She raised both me and my sister are exactly the same, by the way. We're only two sisters. And I think whatever I am here is very similar to what my sister is in her community. She lives in Florida. And both of us were raised to be very independent children. My mother and my father were both physicians. My father passed away now almost 22 years ago. So they were both physicians, both had their own practices, worked long hours, long days. And so from an early age, my sister and I learned to do a lot of things on our own. We weren't necessarily pampered children because, we didn't have a lot of people running around for us. But still, I don't know how she did it. But my mom always had time for her activities, either in the morning, in the middle of the day, after she came back from one clinic, before she went to the other, because we were in theater. My sister and I, we both started theater. I was 4 when I started theater. And then we moved on into music. My sister is a professional Bharatanatyam dancer. She was probably 5, 6 years old and today teaches. I started music. At the time, I used to play sitar. And
I didn't know that.
yes. And so, so she always had time to get us to wherever we needed to. We were fortunate that we obviously lived in Mumbai and public transportation in Mumbai is awesome. So as time went by, we could, figure things out on our own. But we did a lot. As I moved through school, I would do a lot of plays and she was always there to make sure that I was there at my practices when I went into college. I did a lot of things that kind of were ingrained in me at that time. I was actually the first woman president of my college. And my college was established in 1938. So
and which grade was that?
In college, that was in my 3rd year of BA, so my last year, which is basically the year you would typically do that.
So the leadership has been very much part of you from the very beginning.
Yes, it kind of was just there. My mom pushed me very, very, very hard. I joke with her now, all these 42 years later, and we joke about, how funny that was or not that was. It didn't seem funny that time in life when, I would excel and she'd be like, oh, you fell short by like 2 points. And now I joke about it. But I think it instilled in me at a very early age the desire to push hard and to do the best at whatever it is that I do. And I have followed, and I say this to my kids now all the time, that if you're not going to go all the way, don't bother going at all. There's no in between.
Sure.
And haphazard way of doing things.
Absolutely.
Like, you may not be the most excellent person at the end of the day in terms of how it stacked up, but you were excellent because that was the best of your abilities. So whatever it is, just give it your 100 to 100%. Otherwise, don't bother doing it.
So now, when you talk to your mom, for example, and you were a really very good success story here. You were a partner at Deloitte & Touch before. You were traveling all the time.
Yeah.
Now you are with one of the oldest mutual fund company here in at the C-level executive there. Then also heading the IAGB, which is one of the oldest organizations here, and Marathi Mandal Theatre. So now when your mom looks at all these things, what is her reaction? What she says?
I hope she's happy.
Okay. Do you ever talk about these things, or she ever mentions to you?
She does. And I know she's proud. She's very happy, very proud. There's definitely things that I think she's sacrificed along the way. That had history been different, she may have done things differently. But it is what it is now as we look back. As I said, my father passed away maybe 22 years ago. He passed away in 97. So yes, 22 years ago now. So there's a lot that my mom has done in these 22 years for both me and my sister, that things may have been different had he been alive.
Sure, absolutely.
It is what it is.
So now, what are the 3 or 4 lessons you have learned from your mom, which you still practice, that this is important?
I think the one that I just talked about is just sheer determination and
go all the way.
Go all the way. Just do it.
Okay.
Right? Like there's no space for excuses. Just do it.
So this is the one. 2 more.
I think I also strive like her to never be tired. Right? Maybe when I grow older, there will come a time when I will get tired. But as far as possible, I try to fit everything and manage without ever saying to people around me, gosh, I'm tired. Like, you just do it. Because I think that inspires confidence and just ability and desire and energy to people around you. Because if you're the leader and if you're the one who's constantly like, oh, I'm so tired, this is terrible, what do you think people around you are going to do? Mm-hmm. So kind of being that source of inspiration without necessarily sounding cocky about it, but just to kind of infuse that energy around you, I think is critical. And I think the third thing is just education in general. Mm-hmm. My mom has been a huge focus on education and wanted both me and my sister to do that, and I do the same now, sometimes unknowingly to my own children, as much as I
So how many
joked
children
about it.
you have?
I have 2 boys.
And how old are they?
15 and 10.
Okay. Now this leads me to your second inspiration, your husband. So tell me about him, what he does, and how did you guys meet?
My husband works for us a very well-known software company in Massachusetts, and he does capacity management, stuff that I don't understand at all. We met now 21 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's a funny story.
It was soon after your father's death.
It was. I actually came to the United States 4 months before my father passed away to do masters. So I went to Bentley University right here in Waltham, and so my father passed away rather suddenly. So we didn't have a clue at the time. I'd finished my undergrad. I had applied for an MBA program at Bentley. I'd gotten into it. I wanted to come over. I came over in '97. And 4 months later, my mom called, and it was a very sudden heart attack, and that's how he passed away. So obviously I was here to finish my program. And so I was still in school, and my husband also came over from India as an international student for an MBA at Bentley.
At Bentley, okay.
But he's an engineer by background. So as you know, in India, when you do arts, as in I was an economics undergrad, it's a 3-year program, and engineering is a 4-year program. Sure. So I came naturally a year ahead of him, and he came in '98.
So you knew him in...
No, I did not.
Okay.
I only met him here in Boston, and as many of our close friends know, I literally met him when he set foot in the United States, because as other international students do, you have, friends ask you, hey, we have a fresh set of students coming in, they need some help. When you are here in your first year, you get a car, right? You can't do around. So there are always people looking around for those who have cars and can help with rides. So I was like, sure, I'll go help. And I went to give the ride, and we literally met at Logan Airport.
Logan Airport, okay. And so how did it click? Right away you knew that there's something there, or it was just, it grew up later on, the love and affection?
It was pretty much right there.
Love at first sight.
Love at first sight, I guess we can call it that. Yeah, back in '98.
'98. And then how many months later you got married? Or?
Guess we told our parents pretty quickly, and I think our parents knew since '99. Mm-hmm. So about 4 or 5 months after he got here, that we wanted to get married, and but we obviously, again, that thing of we need to be educated, and we finished what we were here for, and we need to be independent, because there was no way I was going to do anything otherwise. So I wanted to make sure I graduated and had a job, and he graduated and had a job, and so I graduated in '99, 2-year program. He graduated in 2000, and we got married in 2001.
And in India or here?
Here. We actually got married in the Ashland Temple.
Ashland Temple, okay.
Which was the only temple around at that time.
Did anybody came from India for the wedding?
Yeah, they did. My mom obviously was here. My sister lives in Florida. Okay. My husband's family, they live in Kuwait. And so they all travel from Kuwait. And we have some other extended family. My extended family traveled from India. His extended family lives in New Jersey, so they came over, and lots of friends from Bentley who were still friends with.
So why not the wedding in India or Kuwait? It was just more convenient, easy to have it here? I
think at the time, it was obviously like any other...
Are you guys were really in a hurry to get married?
No, not at all. Our wedding was planned in India, and my mom had made all the arrangements and everything there. So this was 2001, if you remember. It was the dot-com bubble had begun, was on the edge of bursting type of a thing.
I remember that, yes.
And so at the time, it was difficult, or perceived to be difficult, to get time off from work for both of us, because we were already both working. Sure. And it seems like history repeats itself with all the immigration issues we talk about these days. They were a different flavor back then, but they were somewhat still there. And so at the time, we felt like maybe it was not a prudent move for both of us to take time off and go back. And what if we couldn't come back and all that stuff? And, we weren't necessarily big on festivities as such. And we just said, you know what? I mean, it didn't matter for the family. So my sister was already here. It didn't matter for the family if they had to pick up and travel to India, or his family if they had to pick up and travel from Kuwait to India, or Kuwait to Boston, or Florida to Boston. Like, it wasn't a big deal. So we just said, you know what? It's fine. Let's just get married here. Right. There's no need for any big brouhaha. And
so now, so how, like as I had mentioned earlier that you had mentioned these two people really inspiring you. So how he has been that pillar of your things you do?
My husband is my best friend. I think it's just that we're very different. Close friends who know us will probably attest to it. We're very different people. And maybe that's why we just empower each other.
So what do you mean different people? Like different interests, different hobbies, different personalities?
I think we've come together in our hobbies over the years, but if you met us many years ago and if you first meet us for that, and I'm this fully out, socially active, whatever person. My husband is a homebody. He loves his peace and quiet. But when you get to know him, he can be the life of any party.
I'm already getting curious to know him now.
You have to. If you get to know him, he's the life of any party. He's the greatest, has the greatest sense of humor on earth. And I think when people ask me, what did you, like you said, how did you know? And we were students here. We basically made a life for ourselves. We didn't come, with well-established setup here, like everybody else we went through. And I always say that if nothing else, I would always laugh in life, because he has a great sense of humor. And I think if there's anything in life, he's never said no to me. Whatever it is, you want to do this, do it.
That's
just
very,
do it.
very important, yes. Yeah.
So there's never been you or me or whatever. It's just been, okay, if that's what you want to do, go for it, do it. And we somehow have just figured it out. We've raised two great boys and who are also very independent thinking and very independent. And he's a great father and a great friend to the boys. And we've just been there for each other.
So I think, I mean, somehow I tend to agree that the friendship in any relationship is the most fundamental. That is where, sometimes the friendship can be better than even marriage. If you have a marriage.
You're actually very right about that.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the world that I can't say to my husband, or that he can't say to me, or that we can't have a conversation about, or joke about, or just nothing. So I think I value the friendship more than the relationship of the marriage, if you will. And as I said, they say, like people always like to say the wind beneath your wings type of a thing. So yes, in that regard, he's been the wind beneath the wings. But it's kind of been, if you really look at it now, there's things that he brings, right? He's extremely analytical in his thinking, extremely logical, very detail-oriented, super punctual, and just content about stuff. Like, he'll always help think through, like, okay, so if that's the case, like, so what's the point about worrying? Like, what is that going to get you? And it's very different from who I am. And so I've learned, and I continue to remain inspired about not worrying about the things that ultimately don't matter. I always share this funny story with people sometimes. We were going on a family trip somewhere to maybe New Jersey or somewhere, regular weekend trip. And as always, before leaving the house and pulling the car out of the garage, I kind of was like, okay, did I switch this off? Did we switch off the gas? Did we switch off the light? Wait, is that door closed? is the TV off? Is this off? And I'm like all over this. And then my husband says to me, just calm down for a second, like turn around and look behind you. And it's like, what are you saying? He's like, just look behind you. And so I did, and I see our 2 kids at the time, and one in the car seat, and he's like, they're here with us. That's all matters. Everything else can be recreated.
Sure.
And that is just amazing.
Yeah, no, it's a very good story. Absolutely.
So
now let's get back to. So let's first talk about your interest in theater. I think you mentioned that, I think you were about 4-year-old or so, you started theater. So that was the beginning of and still you have not, you thrive in theater. Still you are very active in acting. I've seen a couple of your plays, and you are active with Setu as well.
Yes.
So how that journey has been for you, the theater?
I absolutely love theater. And I think theater has taught me so much in life that it's almost like I say to my kids now, it is a life skill. And the reason I say that is because, so imagine when you're on stage. Okay, when you're on stage, you, and it's very much akin to what you would do in your professional life or your personal life. You enter the persona of whatever your character is, and in order to be able to clearly and fully depict that persona, you have to go all in, right? Because otherwise you yourself is going to shine through that persona, and that's not what you want, right? If you really want to portray a character, you have to kind of understand the psyche of that character. It goes back to my earlier point about if you're going to do something, do it all the way, right? Theater teaches you process and preparation. In order to actually be on stage for a full-length play, you have to memorize your lines, and you have to have a plan in place to kind of get there, which is again everything else that I've done in life, in professional life. You have to prepare. You have to put energy, time, effort. You have to memorize things. I am blessed with a good memory. I should say that I generally tend to remember things very, very quickly. So that helps in theater. You also then need to understand the context of things, right? There's one thing about rote memorizing lines and delivering them. There's another thing about putting that in the context of that particular situation and what the person across from you is actually going to do and react to. So that's again back to your professional life about you really have to put things in context. Can't just be like put blinders on and move forward in a silo.
So how much time it takes you to really transition from Aditi Taylor to say Kamla or any other role you are playing?
A long time.
Long time.
Usually when we do other theater, like you've seen me with the role of Aisha, I mean, it takes about 6-7 months, to get into the persona of the role. I also think theater is a huge teacher of teamwork. Right? Nobody can ever do anything alone, right? And theater teaches you teamwork because there's never ever been a situation on stage in my entire memory, as far back as I can think, that somebody hasn't forgotten their lines, that I haven't forgotten my lines. You always forget lines. I mean, everybody does. So when you have forgotten your lines, you want your other team member to carry you through. When you have forgotten your lines, I need to be able to carry you through, right? The audience shouldn't know for a split second that you forgot your lines. So whatever it is that you need to ad-lib on the spot, you need to jump in and figure out. And that's what goes back to what I was saying about you can't work with blinders on. Because if you only focused on your own lines, you only know that part, but you don't know the context of the role, the situation, the scene, what your co-actor is going to say to be able to jump in and be able to even say their lines flipped around. And so theater teaches you so much of that you can apply in your professional life. In a professional life, we all work in teams. You need to be able to carry your team.
But in a way, every day, I mean, our life is also a theater. Every day we are living in a theater. I get up in the morning and we are, all the time, we are being our own. And sometimes we are not being our own. We are pretending to be somebody else, in real life too. So in a way, all of us are actors in a certain way.
We are.
Right, we are. Yes. So now let's move to your involvement into the community groups and organizations.
Sure.
You were very active with the New England Marathi Mandal. Tell us about that. How about that organization and. It is one of the big ones here, right?
It is, and it's been around for over 40 years, and it's a fabulous organization, started way back when by enthusiasts about the language, the culture, and has thrived for all these years. I was fortunate to be a part of it on the committee when I first started there in, I think it was probably 2007, I think, is when I was on the committee the first time with the president at the time. And it was a wonderful experience, really knit the community together, did some fantastic productions for the community.
I remember seeing one of them, yes.
Which had about 75 people on stage, and it's fabulous, from the youngest of the youngest to 50 plus people are performing in a dance drama. And to date, when I see all those people and I meet them, everybody remembers it so fondly. And so I did that in 2007 and 2008 and 9, and then I took a break, and then I came back to the organization again. I mean, I was still involved all along, but I went back to the organization as the president.
Which year was that?
2011.
2011.
So I was the president of NEMM for 2011 and 12, and continued into part of 13. In 13, we hosted, so the Marathi community for the last many years. So Marathi community across North America, I should say, has an apex organization called BMM, which is, as it is, an apex body, and all the local Marathi organization chapters kind of almost pay into it, if you will. And so that apex body organizes biennial conventions. So it's every 2 years in different states and cities across North America, including Canada. So we hosted it here in New England in 2013, which was the 32nd year of that convention series. So we hosted the convention here in 2013. It was hosted at the Rhode Island Convention Center. 250 volunteer team, fabulous volunteer team.
And how many people attended roughly?
4,000 people attended. If I remember right, we had 10 countries represented from all over the world that came to attend the convention. It was a fantastic event. It's a 2.5-day event, and 2.5-day event for which I gave 2.5 years of my life. And
that's what it takes anyway.
That's what it takes to build a convention like that with everything where people came from all different states, and they basically have to stay there. So you have to think about food, you have to think about accommodations, you have to think about programming. We brought over 50 artists from India. We did the first ever Sarigama program at the time. So we had done Sarigama in NEMM, in New England Marathi Mandal, back in 2007, which is the first time we ever did it in New England. Anybody ever did it in New England. And then we did Sarigama for the first time North America wide. And we had great talent that came from all across the United States.
Does that program still continue, Sarigama?
It does, actually. The subsequent conventions have continued it.
Okay.
And we brought a band from Z Marathi to support the Sarigama team, who worked with them, the finalists, and they were the live band, and it was a huge success. I mean, fantastic talent that came through from all over the country to participate in Sarigama, and we held auditions locally in each state. Our team members traveled all over the country to hold those auditions, and we brought the people here for semifinals, and then the grand finale was at the convention. Now
let's switch to the India Association of Greater Boston.
Sure.
Now, you took over last year as a president, right?
Yes.
So this is your second year. Your term will be ending
in August, after August.
So fast,
September. I know, time flies.
Yeah. So now you really have brought a new blood, new enthusiasm into the India Association of Greater Boston, which is great. It needed some new, fresh blood. How your journey with IAGB has been?
It's been great. It's evolved. So I don't know if you know, but I've been involved with IAGB since 2005.
Sure, yes.
I was on the EC, the board, from 2005 to 2011, continuous terms. Actually left in 2011 when I went to become the president of New England Marathi Mandal, and I didn't think I could do justice to both roles. So I left and then came back a couple years later, and then subsequently in this role as the president. I think the organization has evolved, and so has the society around us. Time will tell, how it continues to evolve in the future, but so much has changed in New England.
Sure.
In the last 20 years. The complete demographic has changed. We are an extremely active and vibrant community, which is awesome. Just fantastic, right? But with it comes its own challenges.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, time is finite,
Yeah.
and resource and energy is finite, right? So we are so active and so vibrant now that people have to make a choice between what they want to do and where they want to go. And
Sure.
so time obviously gets split and everybody gets a split share, which wasn't the case when the organization
There are
began
few
55 years ago.
Sure.
Right? So when
Sure.
it started 55 years ago, it was the only thing.
Yes.
Even 20 years ago when I first came to the United States, now, 23 years ago, 22 years ago, it was the only one of
Sure.
the kind. I remember as that, fresh student from India
Sure.
wanting to go to the hat shell to
Yeah.
celebrate the Indian
Sure.
Independence Day because there was nothing else.
Sure,
And
sure,
that was the
absolutely.
thing. That was
Yeah.
your bond with the community.
Sure.
Now, there's so much more.
Yeah.
So
I mean, every state, every regional group, every language.
every town
they have.
has. So we'll see. Time will tell
Okay.
how it evolves.
Okay. Now, so as you mentioned about time, that we all have limited time. I mean, you are active in all these different fronts. How do you get the time? What is your time management skill, or how do you get time for everything?
I don't know if there's any secret recipe or anything like that to it, but I just think you just figure it out, you make it happen. If you want to do it, you just make it happen. You prioritize, you plan, process.
Process, yes, sure.
And you just figure it out. I know so many other people who are like me and who do the same exact thing with their time. Their priorities are different, their focus is different. So that doesn't make me any better than them. They also make it happen in their days. It's just that what they do is focus differently, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so I don't think it's any great skill or anything like that. It's just, you just do it without, if you spend your time and energy complaining, then I guess about not having time, then nothing ever gets done.
So now let's talk about some funny stuff now.
Okay.
So if you ask me today, I should ask you that if Aditi Taylor is not working with IAGB or Bharati Mandal or Setu or not working at her company, what she does to really be herself, to enjoy life, what is that thing? What is that magic thing you do to relax yourself from far away from all these things? Or is there something like that?
I love to travel. My father was an avid traveler, and he instilled the love for travel at an early age. And fortunate for me, my husband has the same travel bug, and so we've traveled a lot, both of us, and now with the kids. But we love to travel, and I am a huge history buff, and I really like. I love the history behind things and why it happened, the way it happened, and could it be different? And
so give us one example of like history, like something maybe I don't know, and you say, "Oh, by the way, did you know this? This is how it happened."
I don't know if I can think of any one thing like that, but just usually when we travel, like we'll travel. We've traveled extensively in Europe. I've traveled in India with my parents a lot, pretty much all over the country. And at every point, because my father was an avid historian too, probably he would always be like, "Well, do you know, this was here because X, Y, and Z."
Oh, from that way, okay, sure.
Yeah, so it's just into me, and I've thrived on reading that. I'm a voracious reader.
So what type of books you read?
I read, for work, I read a lot of your regular, up-to-date news stuff.
Non-work.
Non-work, I read fiction only.
Oh, okay.
I only like fiction because there's too much real stuff that I deal with anyway. So when I want to read,
so what are
read
some of your
fiction.
favorite fiction writers?
I've loved Jane Austen. I've grown up on Jane Austen books. Pride and Prejudice is one of my favorite.
Perfect.
Favorite
Sure.
reads.
Yeah, it's a great book. Yeah.
I read a lot in different languages, so I'm avid Marathi reader
somewhere
too.
I've heard that, read or seen that you know 6-7 languages.
Yes.
So that's also by traveling, or you just
No, I So when you grow up in India, which I'm sure you did too,
Sure.
you grow up
2-3
trilingual,
language,
right? That's common.
trilingual,
So that's the denominator for everybody is
Denominator,
essentially trilingual because you learn English. At least my medium of instruction was English. So
Sure.
English, my mother tongue is Marathi. So
And
obviously
then
at home
Hindi
and
or some
everywhere.
other
And
Indian
Hindi in our school, Hindi was required. So
Sure.
from 1st to 10th grade, you had to learn Hindi. So obviously by default, you grew up trilingual. And then in 8th grade, we had the option of taking a foreign language. So I took French. But I guess I must have somehow have a linguistic ear. And so it's easy for me to retain languages. And so I took French and I continued it outside of school in Alliance Française. And I've been continued for Alliance Française for 5 years and got a certificate at the end of it to be proficient in it. And then while I was studying French, I decided that I also wanted to learn German. And so right across the street in Mumbai from Alliance Française was the Goethe Institute, where they taught German. And so I studied at Goethe Institute also for another 5 years and finished that. And so I can read, write, speak French and
Fluently.
German. And then while I was doing that, I decided that Sunday was still available and empty in my schedule, so I decided to go study Japanese.
Okay.
So
Japanese is tough, totally different.
it is, and that's one language that I didn't keep up with. But I did study Japanese, and I could at one point read, write, and speak in all 3 scripts, hiragana, katakana, as well as kanjis, but I haven't kept up with it. And then I came to the United States to study MBA, and I was in Bentley, and all the international students in Bentley, all my friends, my husband included, many of them were Gujarati. And so when we were in Arkham, we used to be doing our projects in the lab, they would all talk to each other in Gujarati. And one fine day, I just turned around and I spoke to them. And as my husband's side of the family would say, if you heard me speak Gujarati, you wouldn't know otherwise. I'm very fluent. But I learned it here in Boston, just listening to them. I didn't know a single word when I was back in India.
I was hoping you were going to add Spanish there. But...
So that is what I'm learning currently. So currently I'm learning Spanish.
So, ¿está aprendiendo español?
Yo hablo español un poco. Un poco de español.
Muy bien. Well, you passed that test anyway.
Yes, I'm learning Spanish right now.
Good, yeah. I speak fluent Spanish.
I know, because you were in South America.
Yeah, I was there for almost 10 years. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So that's the language. I think it's a very interesting. Today in global world, it is incredible. What about music? Music and movies?
Love both.
No.
Love to watch movies.
Bollywood, Marathi. Actually, Marathi movies are also fantastic.
Fabulous. I read a lot of Marathi literature still. And so I watch Marathi movies. I watch Bollywood movies, English movies. Sometimes you'll even watch movies with subtitles because the movie's good.
Sure.
The art is what fascinates me, not so much the language behind it.
Did you ever, think about doing something with Bollywood or something? Because you were really good actress, at least what we have seen here in Boston.
Yes.
It never came to you? Were you happy with theater?
Yeah, I'm sure my mom will recount the story about both my sister and I, because both my sister and I were in theater, and people definitely approaching with opportunities when we were younger. But both my mom and dad were adamant that they didn't want us getting involved at the time in that world and really wanted us to continue with our education. And I don't think we cared much, and so it never happened, and I have no regrets.
So about Hindi movies, that's the only thing I know. I've never seen any Marathi movie. Maybe I don't understand. But Hindi movies, I'm also quite interested. So what are some of your Hindi movies which you...
Oh my God, there's so many.
Like, just pick 2, 3.
I really can't, because there's so... I've watched so many movies.
Like something which stuck to you. Oh, this movie, I often think about it. Like when I see some movie, it is stuck with me. Somehow it doesn't get out of my head easily. Is there any movie like that?
No, not one that I can think. There's so many.
Okay. Any actor or actresses which really stand out?
Oh, I love Amitabh Bachchan.
Amitabh Bachchan.
Hands down. Always have, always will. My favorite actor.
What about any actresses?
There's plenty who've done a good job over the years.
But no one really stands out.
Nobody's like Amitabh Bachchan.
Sure. Okay.
He's my hero when it comes to acting.
What about some like songs which has stuck with you?
Oh, Upinderji, you're asking me all these difficult questions. I love music. I did the Antakshari show, and all of it. I remember a lot of songs. So no, there's no one.
That you cannot just pick one like that.
I love all of them.
Okay.
I love so many of them, and again in all different languages.
So now as we come to the end of the interview, your term with IAGB will be ending this year. September.
Officially in September, but the last event was in August.
In August, which is India Day, which is happening at the City Hall this year again, like last year.
Yes.
And so how was that moving from Hatch Cell to City Hall?
It was daunting. It definitely was very daunting last year because I don't know many people know how it works, but the Hatch Shell, when we used to do it in the Hatch Shell, is pretty much a cookie cutter model in that you get the stage, you get the facility, and then you have to figure out the food and everything. In the City Hall, the way it works is the actual venue is free. I mean, literally, the City Hall, there is no cost to rent it. But then everything else you have to figure out. You have
Bathrooms.
Everything from the toilets to how the trash is going to get picked up, to the sound, to the roof, to the stage, to the tables, everything you have to figure, to water. Everything, and electricity. They don't even have electricity on the plaza. I don't know if you know this.
I didn't know that.
There is no power on the plaza. And so you have to figure out all of these things. And last year definitely was
first time
and daunting, and trying to even figure out where do we go to get all of these things. There's like 1,000 permits you have to figure through. But we did it, and it was great, and it was a great team effort. And now we know. And so now there's a process in place which we followed this year, and it's pretty easy. The vendors were fantastic. I mean, if there's anything I can say about the community support that we got, both from the mayor's office and also all the vendors that we worked with, and to date, they would bend over backwards to do anything to help you. Like, not once did I feel like anybody was, not wanting to work with a new community that was trying to hold an event. They really were extremely helpful. Extremely helpful, and hard to this date.
So this year it was much easy. It is going to be much easy.
Well, I hope so.
Yes.
If you remember this, we said this last year too, and we keep praying for the rain gods to keep blessing us. It's an open air event in August, and that's always that is the one piece where I joked last year.
And you have no control.
You have no control. But back to where we started this conversation on my risk management role. It always makes me antsy to be in that situation, because I know I cannot control that, and that's something that could go wrong. It could completely get rained out, but you just have to pray.
Sure. Okay, Aditi, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.